Thank you for subscribing to our channel. Today is Saturday, November 21, 2020. BBC report. France murder. Jonathann Daval jailed for 25 years for killing wife. Alexia Daval's partially burnt body was found in woodland near the northeastern town of Gray in October 2017. Her husband, Jonathann Daval, initially reported her as missing, telling police she had gone jogging and never returned. He later confessed to beating her to death, and to burning her body. The 36-year-old was impassive as the verdict was read out on Saturday. He earlier said sorry while looking at his wife's parents.
BBC report. California's COVID curfew to begin as cases surge beyond past peak. The state's latest figures are now worse than the previous peak in August, the Los Angeles Times reports. Across the U.S., the daily death toll linked to COVID-19 has passed 2,000 for the first time since May. About 187,000 new cases were recorded nationwide in the latest figures, released on Friday for the previous day, which is an all-time high. Several states have imposed new mask mandates and restrictions to try to combat the rise.
CNN report. European countries believed that Germany would always have spare ICU beds for them. Now they're almost full. Germany was seen as a beacon for other European countries during the first coronavirus wave and hailed for one of the world's best health care systems. But it is now beginning to struggle with more severe infections than at any other point during the pandemic. Coronavirus infection numbers hit an all-time record Friday, with nearly 24,000 new daily cases recorded, and so did the number of patients in the country's intensive care units.
Deutsche Welle report. G20. Angela Merkel calls for global action to beat coronavirus. German Chancellor Angela Merkel urged G20 leaders to remain united in the fight against coronavirus on Saturday, telling a virtual summit that more needs to be done to beat the pandemic. Merkel was speaking during a meeting hosted by Saudi Arabia with heads of state and government from the world's wealthiest economies. If we stand together worldwide, we can control and overcome the virus and its consequences. Therefore, more effort is worthwhile.
Fox report. Colorado's Bear Creek fire contained after hundreds forced to evacuate. Colorado's Bear Creek fire, which had forced the evacuations of 235 homes earlier this week, is now 100% contained. The Colorado Springs Fire Department made the announcement Friday evening after windy and warm weather conditions whipped flames dangerously close to homes on Thursday. "I want to thank those firefighters up on the fire ground," Colorado Springs Fire Chief Ted Collis said. "They did a tremendous job."
Fox report. Canada places largest city under lockdown for at least 28 days amid coronavirus spikes. The Ontario province will initiate partial coronavirus lockdown measures in 2 regions starting Monday, officials announced. Ontario is home to Toronto, the largest city in Canada with almost 3 million residents. Ontario has seen over 1,400 cases in the past 24 hours, forcing Ontario Premier Doug Ford to initiate a lockdown. The lockdown will cover Toronto and the Peel region, Ford announced on Friday.
Deutsche Welle report. Pompeii archaeologists discover bodies of man and his slave. Archaeologists have discovered skeletal remains of 2 men scalded to death by the volcanic eruption that destroyed the ancient Roman city of Pompeii nearly 2,000 years ago, the Italian Culture Ministry said on Saturday. The partial skeletons are believed to be those of a man with high status and his slave. The first was likely aged between 30 and 40, and still bore traces of a woolen cloak under his neck.
CNN report. These are some of this year's most inspiring moments. Which one moves you most? In a year of upheaval, everyday people stepped up to help each other through the COVID-19 pandemic and stood up against systemic racism. There were moments of compassion, bravery, and grit, bringing light and hope to one of the most challenging years of our time. To that end, CNN Heroes is spotlighting this year's most inspiring moments, and we want to know your favorite. Right now, you can vote for the moment that moved you most at CNN Heroes.
CNN report. How Georgia's pro-Trump election chief became the bane of the GOP. On Friday morning, just hours before his office helped certify that Joe Biden won the state's 16 electoral votes, Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger was insistent he still supported Donald Trump and wished the president were heading to a second term. "I wish he would have won, and especially in Georgia," said Raffensperger in an interview with CNN's Amara Walker on Friday. "I certainly cast my vote for him. but the results are what the results are.
Fox report. ISIS claims responsibility for deadly attack in Kabul. About 23 mortar shells slammed into different parts of the Afghan capital on Saturday, killing at least 8 people and wounding 31 others, an official said. The shells were fired from 2 cars, Interior Ministry spokesperson Tariq Arian said. No one took immediate responsibility for the early morning attack that also targeted the posh Wazir Akbar Khan area of Kabul, which houses diplomatic missions.
CNN report. 12 million Americans could lose crucial unemployment benefits just after Christmas. With special pandemic unemployment benefits set to expire in the next few weeks, opera singer Brian Montgomery is making plans to leave the country. Since March, Montgomery, a New Yorker who also works as a voice teacher and tour guide, has not been able to find steady work, but he's gotten weekly payments thanks to the historic expansion of benefits under the $2 trillion federal stimulus package.
Al Jazeera report. New York governor wins International Emmy for COVID-19 briefings. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has won an International Emmy Award for his daily COVID-19 briefings during the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic in the United States last spring, which particularly devastated the state. The governor earned praise for his decisive approach early on in the pandemic, as cases and deaths surged and hospitals in New York City became overwhelmed. Cuomo's daily briefings, which were data-heavy, blunt and usually aided by a PowerPoint presentation, stood in stark contrast to those given by U.S. President Donald Trump, who has been accused of downplaying and politicizing the virus.
Deutsche Welle report. Pompeo meets with Taliban negotiators in Qatar ahead of U.S. troop withdrawal. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with negotiators from both the Afghan government and the Taliban during his visit to Qatar's capital, Doha, on Saturday. The meeting comes as President Donald Trump's administration looks to speed up the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan during the last days of his presidential term, which ends with President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20.
Al Jazeera report. U.S. mulls Houthi terror label as groups say civilians to suffer. United States lawmakers, international aid groups and rights advocates are warning the outgoing Trump administration against reported plans to label Yemen's Houthi rebel group a foreign terrorist organization, saying it would worsen the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Citing unnamed U.S. officials, Foreign Policy First said this week that the U.S. State Department was considering the designation as part of President Donald Trump's maximum pressure campaign against Iran and its allies.
Fox report. Florida children rescued after driver crashes into pond while fleeing deputies. A car chase in Florida led to a harrowing rescue Thursday when the fleeing driver crashed into a pond with 2 children in the back seat. Deputies attempted to stop the car over a window tint violation on U.S. Highway 19 in Pasco County at 3:15 p.m., but the suspect drove into the nearby Yamar Mobile Home Park, passing several residents and hitting a dead end before losing control. The driver was identified as 30-year-old Jonathann Mark Deloach, who was wanted on drug charges, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office said.
BBC report. Bardi Singh, Indian comedian arrested after cannabis found in raid. The Narcotics Control Bureau (NCB) said 86.5 grams 3 ounces of the drug was found in the house she shares with husband, screenwriter Harsh Limbachia. The pair, who co-host the reality show India's Best Dancer, were taken in for questioning. The raid was part of an investigation into allegations of illegal drug use in the entertainment industry. The investigation emerged from a high-profile inquiry into the death of the actor Sushant Singh Rajput in June and has led to multiple raids on figures from the TV and film world.
Al Jazeera report. Nigeria slips into recession blamed on COVID-19 and oil prices. Nigeria has slipped into a recession after its gross domestic product contracted for the second consecutive quarter, according to official data released. Africa's biggest economy is in recession for the first time since 2016. The recession 4 years ago was its first in a generation, and the country emerged from it the following year. However, growth has been fragile and COVID-19 has hit the economy hard, amid low oil prices.
Thank you for watching 5 p.m. Recap. To be notified, you can subscribe our channel and activate the bell.